For this piece, I'll be using the Rubens palette. I'm just going to prepare my palette by adding a violet color, which is in the shade D115. There are no English names on this palette, so I'm not exactly sure what the shade name is. I'm also adding a lemon yellow color to this palette in the shade C202. I'm adding a lot of water to both of these colors, and I'll be using them as a base for the petals. Using the diluted yellow, paint the shapes of the front 3 pansy petals. I'm using a bunch of different reference photos from online and also some photos I've taken before. If you don't want to use yellow for this base, you can also use clear water, but I find that the yellow makes it easier to see. Also, in the reference photo I am looking at, the pansy also has a bit of yellow in it. Now I'm going to take some of that purple color, but I'm going to add a bit more pigment and then add it to the edges of the petal. Add the purple in while the petals are still wet so that you get this bleed effect. While it is still wet, add in some of that yellow back into the center of the flower and spread it out a little bit. Watercolors dry a little bit lighter, so I'm just adding a little bit more purple to the edges of the petal to make it darker. Ideally, you would do this while the petals are still wet, but in Australia everything dries so quickly, so you'll see that I am doing things out of order. I put the edges aside for a bit and I'm just adding a bit more yellow into the center of the flower, and I'm using the shade D243, which is a warmer shade of yellow. I realized that the petals were still wet enough, so I used some diluted purple and added some thin lines like this. I then added some darker purple to the edges of the petal, just like what I was doing before. And because the petals are already too dry, just get some clear water and just spread it out like this. Now on to the back two petals. I'm using some diluted purple and just painting the shapes like this. Then, using some pigmented purple, add it to the edges of the petal. Just like the other petals, add some thin lines. If the edges aren't dark enough, add some more purple. Again, if you want to soften up the edges, you can do that with water. Here, whilst I am darkening the edges, I am actually using that pigment to paint in these lines. I just drag out the color like this. Once you are happy with all these lines, let everything dry. The center isn't dark enough, so I'm just adding a bit more yellow here. Now for the final details, I'm going to add some black to the purple on the palette. Using this dark purple, with the brush semi-dry, paint some strokes like this with very light pressure. There was a bit of white space here, so I added a bit more of that lemon yellow. Now, if you like the flower as it is, you can choose not to add leaves, but if you'd like, keep watching this video. For the green, I don't really have a formula. I kind of just mix up all the greens until I find the color I want. This is my first time painting pansy leaves, so I was using a reference photo to try and get the shape correct, which is why it was taking me forever to get the shape correct. After getting the shape correct, whilst the leaves were still semi-wet, I added these veins. I then decided that I wanted some more definition in the leaves, so getting some clear water and a semi-dry brush, I lifted off some paint. I then did the same for the second leaf. And there you have it, a really simple and easy pansy flower. Thank you so much for watching and supporting.